Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the last guy we're going to talk about today, and that's Nolan. I'm just going to say it, Traore. It might be said differently, but Nolan Traore is listed.
Technically, Bryce, we are talking about somebody else tomorrow who will be included in this podcast today.
Oh yeah, great point.
Yeah.
But anyways, Nolan is listed at 6'4". And they don't list a weight. 6'4", probably a little bit of an overlist, but he's a solid size point guard. 6'3", 6'4", whatever. May 28th, 2006 birthday. So sorry, go ahead, Stone.
Someone, I forget who it was, so I can't give him credit, but someone did say that he measured officially overseas, I believe 6'4.5" in shoes is what he measured.
6'4.5" in shoes. Oh, in shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was tripping there for a minute. I was like, he's almost 6'6". Okay, 6'4.5" in shoes. I'll buy that. That's fine. He doesn't play that big, but May 28th, 2006, he's 18 years old. His rookie season will be his age 19 season. He'll actually, when this pod drops, he'll be turning 19 in about a week. So happy early birthday. This season for St. Quentin, he averaged 12.2 points, 1.9 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 0.7 steals, and 0.0 blocks per game on 41.3, 30.7, 71.6 shooting splits. He played in 42 games, started 34 of them, but only played about 22.9 total minutes. For some more advanced stats, 51.1 true shooting, not great. It's worth noting in the Jeep Elite League specifically, it's been worse than that. 49.4 true shooting in the league that he's played the majority of his games in, and where a lot of the top comp is. A 43.4 assist rate. That's the real stat, and we'll talk about that. 17.4 turnover rate, 1.7 steal rate, only a 0.3 block rate, and a 105 offensive rating. Let's start with that playmaking, because that is the sell. There is really not a lot else there with Traore, however it's said. So that's where I want to start. Stone, how did you feel about Nolan as a playmaker?
Yeah, very quick editor's note here. He measured at 6'3", 0.75, 6'3 3/4 without shoes at Basketball Without Borders. That was the measurement that came in. Credit to Pick and Row Roshan. How I feel with him as a playmaker, there's no way to say it without being mean. I'm sorry. I think he is the worst decision maker with the ball in his hands that I've ever evaluated. That is how I think the playmaking is. I really like the speed. I think that the burst is really good. If you're that level of a decision maker for me, I cannot buy you as an NBA player. And if you guys disagree with me on that, I'm very happy to hear it. I think that
you mean specifically for like point guard prospects, like guys that are this high level of like ball handlers?
Yeah, I mean, do you project him in any other role other than
No, I
okay.
don't. But I'm just saying, like, you said this is the worst decision maker or the ball.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry.
You specifically mean with like point guard prospect.
Correct. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I should have specified that. But as a point guard, the worst decision maker I think I've evaluated. And there's no other role for him, so that's important. I think just the burst is great. He can create advantages really well. He has a great change of pace, not to the Fears level, in my opinion, but I do think that it is manipulative in some ways, not consistently, though. I think that a lot of times it just doesn't seem like he's looking to set anybody up on his team. He's passing the first open guy he sees. And that's really problematic because he's not reading the defense either. It feels like it's just the window that is open at that 0.5 second window, and he sees it open, and that's when he's throwing the pass without any regard to where the defense is, where the help defense is, where his teammate might be moving to. And I think that really just I think it disqualifies him as a prospect. Personally, I think that to be that level of passer as someone that projects to be a primary point guard and primary initiator, I don't see how that succeeds in the NBA. But I'm happy to hear otherwise.
So I do quickly want to say I want to word this in a way that's a little different from Stone. I think I'd struggle to call him the worst decision maker, just if for nothing else than that assist to turnover ratio. What I will say is I think he's generally really good at knowing where his teammates are. He understands the rotations where they're supposed to be, but I think he's pretty bad at diagnosing what the defense is doing. And he also he gets himself in really bad spots all the time. And that worked out against FIBA. Like Traore dominated FIBA U18 stuff. And he wasn't the best player in that tournament because Djokovic was great. But Traore looked like there was a reason people were talking about him as a top 5-10 pick. But the more he's played at this pro level, the more I've just been I've really realized how much of it was bum slaying. Because as soon as there was real competent help defense, he does this thing all the time where he jumps in the air and he has to figure out what the fuck he's going to do. And it's too late. It's too late. Now, he gets away with not turning the ball over a ton on that. He does. But he is the jump passer in the worst kind of way. It's my least favorite type of point guard passing. A lot of those assists, too, like that assist rate is great. A lot of those assists are he is standing still at the top of the arc and there's good action going on around him. And then he just makes the pass to the right place, which is, again, a skill. That's decision making, but it's not manipulation. It's not. So I don't want, as crazy as that assist rate is, like it's also important to contextualize it. In terms of like pick and roll efficiency, which I do think is important for him at St. Quentin this year. He was in the 97th percentile in terms of percent of time and 62nd percentile in terms of points per possession, which is good. But Coop, what do you think the turnover rate might have been in pick and roll?
Oh, dude.
It's not as high. It's not as high as your guy Phylon, but
I was about to say if Phylon's at 25, I want to say it's below that because 25 was like actually almost made me vomit when I heard that number. But give me 18.
You're close. 19.4.
Ooh.
The place he was closest to Phylon, he turned the ball over in transition 24.2% of the time.
In transition?
In transition. He's
like the fastest player in that fucking league, and he's turning the ball over 20. Oh my god.
Yeah. He was transition was where he was best. Shot 78.1 effective field goal percentage, 71st percentile there, but just overall, like I do kind of agree with Stone that I just don't think he's a great decision maker, and I don't think he's a great tight space handler. And I think an even bigger issue on top of all of that is that he's just not that like athletic outside of speed. He takes really wide driving angles. He doesn't want to make any contact. He's very, very contact averse unless he thinks he's going to get a foul. And he's just really he only dunked one time in 50 games or however many games it was. How many games did he play? He only dunked one time in 42 games. It's just there's not a ton for me to like latch onto here with Traore other than that crazy assist rate. But again, having watched all his assists, I really wasn't that impressed. There's some nice passes on there. Especially he'll do some really good like attacking DHOs, like throwing some cross-court skips that are nice. But even then, I don't think he's always making the right read. There's a couple of times where they're running Spain stuff, and he throws a cross-court skip as if someone is tagging the roll. And the pass gets there, and the shot is open, and he gets an assist. But no one did tag the roll, and the guy was just wide open at the rim. And it's like, I like that you threw the cross court skip, but I kind of wish you would have just thrown it to the guy who was going to dunk instead. So like there's little things like that I don't always. And again, he's young. Like stuff like that can get better, and all that stuff. But I wasn't impressed by the improvement rate on anything. I didn't think the handle was particularly good. And the biggest issue with Traore as a player right now is that teams can go 20 feet under every screen, and he won't punish them. He is a horrendous off the dribble shooter right now. Horrendous. This year for St. Quentin, the numbers won't even tell you how bad it actually was. And we're going to talk about that. But he took 167 dribble jumpers and was only in the 33rd percentile, 35.6% effective field goal rate. And teams, especially by the end of the season, are going like way, way, way under screens in a way that you just don't see. Like in pro basketball, people don't go under screens. That people don't go under TJ McConnell screens at the logo to the same degree they go under all his screens. And I think a lot of people are going to be sold by the FIBA dribble jump shooting, where he was technically in the 98th percentile, but that was only 18 attempts. I think he really showed us what kind of off the dribble jump shooter he is this year, and that's a really, really bad one. And the biggest issue is that he's all feel on his jumper right now. His mechanics are completely inconsistent. There's very little, consistency there. He's not. He kind of just decides when he wants to take it off the dribble jumper instead of reading what the defense is giving him, and he doesn't have good enough touch to be that kind of shooter. He has to be a really high-level mechanic shooter, and he's just not. That's just not who he is right now. And so, I think that all kind of points to him potentially just being a really awful offensive basketball player as a primary initiator. And I don't think, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to have a second here. I don't think there's anything extra to grab onto here as like an off-ball player. He was an okay off-ball shooter, especially unguarded. He was in the 85th percentile. But overall catch and shoot, 75th percentile, 57.7%, effective field goal rate. Those are good numbers. But again, he's not a very good off-ball mover. He just kind of stands around until he sees an opportunity to get a shot. Which is fine. Like again, for a point guard, that's not the worst thing in the world. A lot of point guards aren't particularly good off-ball movers, and he's still really young. But I do think there's like this kind of air of, I don't want to say laziness because I don't know the kid, and I'm sure he's a great kid, and I want nothing but the best for him. But I don't watch him, and I don't get very enthused by how he plays, and I don't get the sense that his teammates enjoy playing with him, to be completely honest. Which is not a thing you want to say about a guy who is, assisting on 41.7% of the, shots that when he's playing or whatever, like he is just there's constantly people yelling at him about his decision making. He's standing around a lot. When he gets frustrated, he'll stop setting hard screens. He'll stop setting hard screens for like off-ball actions. He won't sprint anywhere until he sees a shot is going to open up. Like all that stuff to me, like just really, really bad signs, combined with the fact that I don't think he's really gotten any better since FIBA or over the course of the season. That really, I don't know, worries me and bothers me. And there's just nothing I'm really latching on here with Traore. Stone, am I missing anything here?
Not when it comes to the end result of how you feel about him. And I don't want to just crap on him this entire time, but I do think it's important to contextualize why. Well, I get the feeling, at least for me, why we'll be so much lower on him than consensus seems to be, by pointing out these things. Like I think he's like pretty awful off the ball. Like he doesn't have any motor whatsoever. Seems like he's just waiting to get the ball back. He's like, whatever action is happening, either they shoot or they're going to give the ball back to me. And he's just waiting for one of those two things to happen. It doesn't feel like he wants to put in a lot of effort, particularly off the ball. It seems like he doesn't have great awareness of not only as a passer where defenders are, but also as a ball handler. Like he gets picked from behind quite often. He just doesn't seem to really have a lot of, and part of that might be a lack of communication that his teammates don't provide for him that maybe they should. But he does get picked quite a bit, not just off of bad passes, but just not knowing where defenses are in proximity to him as a ball handler. I think that he has a lot of times where he's just dribbling, waiting for something to happen rather than creating. And he has the ability to create with and suck in defenses with the level of burst and first step that he has, which I think are quite good, but he doesn't always utilize it.
They're good, but he's not willing to beat guys on their hips, so he has to go super wide. And then even with that quick first step, like Paris defenders have proven it in a way that FIBA guys couldn't. They will just get back in front. Like pro basketball defensive players will just get back in front of him, and that's part of why he was so inefficient overall.
Right, and I think too, it's also worth pointing out like he is playing in a really good league. He's playing in a top 3 league, I would say, in the world with France, and outside of the NBA, probably the most athletic league, like an extremely athletic league.
I would agree. Like Spain is probably better in terms of there's more skilled players, and Spain will always get like almost always get the top overall European guys. But I would say France is more athletic in general in terms of, I think it's probably a slightly better defensive league than Spain, even though Spain is the more skilled league and Spain gets the best vets. I do think that is important.
Exactly, but on the flip side of that coin, the NBA is not going to be easier. It's not going to be less athletic guys, less long guys that he's going up against. So yes, he's struggling, and struggling more so probably than what a collegiate player is doing against the level of competition, because of the level of competition he's playing against, but also that level of competition is only going to get harder. It's only going to get longer. It's only going to get more athletic, more twitchy athletically. And he's going to only go up against better defenders with better hands. It's not like it's just a complete excuse for me as to some of these flaws. And that goes for any player. And I don't think that really gets talked about enough. And defensively, I mean, I'll go through it quickly on my end. Like, I think that he sticks with opposing players well who are driving if they're on a standstill. If there's no tilted defense whatsoever, if he is going up against, if the defense is somewhat tilted, he gets cooked quite often. I think that he really doesn't try in recovery if he does get cooked, and I think against a lot of bigger players, which again in France they are quite big and long on average, but he got bullied quite a bit. We talked about his height, his size might be good in terms of the height for a point guard, but how he physically and functionally plays is much smaller than that because of the lack of strength that he has. And he gets, he puts in effort defensively as someone that sticks with guys off ball too. But in general, it's going to be really difficult for him to be a plus defender when he's getting bullied all the way to the rim, regardless of whether it's wings or guards. And I don't necessarily buy that he has a frame conducive to adding a lot of strength.
You guys, I've been really enjoying listening to you guys shit on him. I'm not going to lie, because I have nothing kinder than you guys to say. The defense is, like, in my opinion, the most interesting thing he does because he's, like, at least all right and kind of, like, slides well. But he's so light and he just doesn't do anything else. There's no off ball. His motor just does not run hot.
He's too athletically deficient for not playing as hard as he does too. Like he really struggles to contest vertically. He might have long arms, but he doesn't play like he has a long wingspan. He's pretty consistently, he's a kind of one bump and fold kind of guy, right? Like he's a good defender in terms of if he can really stay in front of you. But like if they get half a step and then they bump him, he's out of the play. So like, while I don't think the defense is awful, for a guy that is, is how Traore was sold before the season is like, a superstar upside type guy. In that case, yeah, I'd say the defense is fine. For who he actually is, I'm just not. I'm just really not there in terms of like the defense being a part of the like Saraf, I think, is a comfortably better defensive player than Traore, and I think that really does matter.
Yeah, I'd say it's not even close. The size plus like actual hands and gives effort, even though Saraf isn't like a super high motor guy. Completely different. I very easily prefer Saraf at just about everything, on both ends. The big thing with Traore is that watching him, it really feels like you're watching somebody who they're playing NBA 2K My Career, right? It's I am here and this is all built around me and I get to take as many shots as I want and I'm gonna, there's no plan, there's no scheme. I'm just gonna do cool stuff. And if it doesn't work out, like when I play NBA 2K and I get stripped a few times, I get pissed off and I start running around fouling people, because it's a video game. But it's not how real basketball works. And he just doesn't play a brand of basketball that really is conducive to any kind of winning.
And they didn't win. I mean, they were bad.
He played for a bad team, and they were worse when he was on the floor, and it just about every single way, and it just sucked. It was a bad experience watching him, and I just don't see why would you draft him, over some, mediocre college point guard, who can at least kind of shoot the ball. And even if he just makes the same read over and over again, at least he actually makes fucking reads, right? Like, I just don't get it. He really, maybe this is also partially an aesthetic thing, but he reminds me a lot of RJ Hampton. The quickness plus like all right size plus just actually does fuck all. Really reminds me of RJ Hampton. And Hampton stuck around a little bit better than I think Traore will. Hampton stuck around because he's like 6'6". Traore's 6'3", cannot pass the ball, cannot even pretend to shoot. I think it's just like it's a pure bet on quickness, and I don't even think Traore is like outlier quick. Like there are guys who are faster than him, who are going to go second round, and it's going to be ridiculous. So
the real bet with Traore, which I don't know how high he's going to go. Actually, there's another guy who could. These pods might not do numbers because I think both Saraf and Traore can absolutely slip to the second round. But the real sell is, man, he was so good at FIBA under stuff, and France loves him. France put him on the national team for stretches. So obviously there's belief that this is a guy. The truth is, it's important for NBA teams to be in with the French national team right now. I think that's a big reason. What's his name got the contract from the Sixers, Yabusele. Some of it's because he played so well, and I think he absolutely statistically deserved another shot at the NBA. But it was also because having a good relationship with the French national team is a pretty good idea if you're an NBA GM right now. And so I could see him sticking around for that type of stuff, but and that's part of why he'll go high. And the other reason is, again, if you watch his FIBA stuff, there is some legitimately really interesting stuff there. But the truth is, as much as I love FIBA U18 and I value that sample for guys, it's also built to be dominated by someone like Traore, who's a little bit more physically developed and who is going to exploit those the types of inefficiencies that are there. Now, I will say I do think we're maybe coming across really hard. Like there is a world that Traore is good enough to stick in the NBA, and what it is that he's a good enough pick and roll playmaker to really lead backup units. With his size especially. Now, I don't think the off the dribble jumper will get to where it needs to be, but he can make catch and shoot jumpers. So you got to get high, and then maybe you can find ways to get guys advantages, even if they can't beat unders off the dribble, by having them operate. If they can make catch and shoot shots, especially having them operate out of ball screens with a stagnant handle, where the first thing they're trying to get is a closeout first, because it's hard to close out and then get under a screen defensively, especially in the NBA with how quick things move. You could do zoom actions and stuff to try and get him advantages that way, but at a certain point, there's just too many things that I personally really don't. I don't like the jump passing. I don't like contact avoidance in general. Like, as skinny as Essengue is, and we'll talk about guy in a couple pods who I don't think we're gonna like, but like Will Riley, for as skinny as he is, not contact avoidant. Contact avoidance is a big red flag for prospects for me right now. It's a big reason Jace Richardson isn't quite as high on my board as I think he will be for some people. It's a reason why Liam McNeely is not as high on my board as I wanted him to be. Contact avoidance is a worse sign to me than actual like strength, because Traore is fairly built, and every once in a while he will, like, especially if he thinks he's going to get a foul, he'll seek contact late. Like, contact avoidance is not a zero-sum game. Like, and I'll tell you the truth. When I play basketball, I'm fairly contact avoidant. I'm not trying to bump into dudes all the time. Like, that's not what I'm about. I'm trying to get my buckets. But, like, I'll still seek contact at the end if I think we're going to get fouled. And that's how a lot of people are. Like, it's one thing to seek contact right at the rim because that's what it needs to be to finish. It's another thing to be contact avoidant all over the court except for that area. And even then, he's still trying lots of times to try and avoid him. He's very right-handed too. Like, doesn't really have a comfortable left. There's just a lot of red flags for me on a guy that I don't buy as a lead initiator. And I also don't buy the secondary skills in the way I do with Saraf that makes me think there's at least some upside for Saraf. You know what I mean? Like, there's a place for him to play a role that's not just runs a million pick and rolls. And I don't think that's true with Traore. I just don't think he can do anything but run a million pick and rolls. And that's my issue. So I wouldn't draft him. I'd probably invite him to Summer League and give him a two-way, maybe. But I even have him a tier below Fears. And I know it sounds like I hated Fears. And I do hope I didn't come across as like rude in that pod. I'm really not trying to. And I hope I don't come across as rude here. But it's just, the truth is, you kind of have to be harsh in NBA scouting. If you're not, then you're not being honest. There's basketball players who are, again, assuredly great people who will have successful careers, who have accomplished more in the sport than I ever have or will or whatever. I can acknowledge all of that. At a certain point, if you're not willing to tear down someone's game, then you are being dishonest. Even guys you like, you should be willing to tear down parts of their game, because there's very few perfect prospects. And I think we sometimes get in this bubble where, because these guys are so young and whatever, certain people don't want to hear you be mean. It's hating to be mean. And I understand. I understand. It's not like a fun, I mean, it's a fun pod, but it's not fun to talk about a guy that I've never met and say, like, hey, this is why I don't think you're going to be good enough to achieve your dreams. Like, that's not like a fun thing to do, but it's important. It's what the job is. And if you want to really be a scout, then that's what you got. If you want to be a media person, if you want to be one of those pretentious dickheads who thinks that the only thing that matters is your intel, and who are going to do whatever an agent fucking tells you to do, then you go do that. That's great. Good for you. You'll probably make more money doing that than I make doing this. Great. But don't delude yourself by saying that you're doing any real fucking analysis. Real analysis requires being mean sometimes, because the only reason I know that I like a Noa Essengue this much, and I like Rasheer Fleming as much as I do, and I like Con Knuppel and Kasparas Shakachonis as much as I do, is because I can watch Traore and be like, well, that's what it doesn't look like. That's what bad basketball is. That's what the someone who I think is going to fall through the cracks and fail is going to look like. Because the truth is, every draft is only going to have like 20 guys. I want to feel really, really good about my top 20. And then really anyone below 20, you should think is a somewhat unlikely NBA player. Maybe there's some wiggle room here and there. One draft might only have 17, another draft might have 25. Okay. But once you get to that, like if you're talking about guys as second rounders, what you're really saying is I don't think they will be an NBA player. There is a path, but I don't think so. And when you're saying a guy is going to go undrafted, you're saying I really don't think this guy is going to be. It will take very outlier development, and that's what I'm saying with Traore. Again, I'm sure he's a great young man. I wish all the best for him, but I think it would take very, very outlier development for him to stick in the NBA. Like he would have to really completely change his ability as an off the dribble shooter and get tougher and not be so erratic as a decision maker. And even though he's young, like none of that is in his film. Like he doesn't show the potential for any of that. He doesn't show the handle for any of that. So I just think he's not really someone I'd be in on. And that's where I fall down with it. Sorry, that was a long soapbox. Fellas, you guys have any final thoughts here?
I'll tell you where I placed him, I guess, is I'm in the same boat as, to me, right now I have a tier of guys that are like priority two-way contracts and then guys that are probably priority summer league, and there's not really maybe I'd give this guy a two-way tier for me. So Traore and McNeely are right there for me as like priority summer league type prospects. And I would bring him into a summer league. Probably would not give him a two-way, but I would just let him have fun highlights on my summer league team, most likely. I keep your soapbox there because I thought that was really good and important, and I want to quickly put mine next to yours because I think that it is very important to talk about these guys as what they are. It's whether you like it or not, the NBA is a business, and in order to be a successful business for any business, you have to be realistic. You have to have reality. This is the reality of what we see with Traore or any other prospect that we dislike in relation to consensus. And it's not hating. It's in order to justify where we have to justify. We are not consensus. We don't have him as a top 20 pick. So the onus is on us to tell you why we aren't there. And in order to do that, we have to talk about the negatives because clearly we're much lower on him than where most people are. And if the onus is on us and we have to provide those negatives, that's what we're going to do. And I think that could be misconstrued as hating, as you're just out to get this guy, but it's what we see and it's what we have to convey in some way. And there might be people out there that sugarcoat in a way that is more appealing. And if you want that, that's fine. And that it is more appealing to more people where it's, I think, easier to consume something that is less negative. And that's great. And it's not a knock. It's just, and it's not necessarily a different way of evaluating. It's just not evaluating, because if you're not being, like Bryce said, honest, if you're not being negative, you're not being honest, because there is no class where everybody is positive. There is no class. That's just the reality of it. There's no class where every prospect is without flaw. And I think that it's important to point out the flaws just as it is important to point out the positives. And I think if you can't do either simultaneously, then it's just not evaluation. And that's what evaluation is pointing out all points and perspectives of a player. And I think that was well said by Bryce, and I think hopefully conveys in a way that makes sense to a lot of listeners and YouTube watchers now that we're on YouTube.
Yeah, I would not draft him. I would not invite him to my summer league team. He's the kind of guy who it's just like with a guy like Saraf, it's like I'm comfortable missing on a guy like Saraf because I just don't see the value even if he hits. The guy like Traore, it's like this is the kind of guy who you bring in and it's just a waste of everybody's time. I think I appreciate you guys' soapboxes. I do think it's very easy. Sometimes, as much as we It can seem like we're kind of hot takes machines at times. It's for a reason. It's because we truly believe the things that we say, not for engagements, not for any of this stuff. It's about intellectual honesty at the end of the day for us. So I'm sorry, Nolan Traore, that you were so bad you made us have this discussion. but yeah, I have him at the bottom of my board. Even a guy like Demin, you get cool entry passes, and I don't think you get that with Traore. So, yeah.
Demin is also 6'9", so for whatever.
Yeah, he's huge humongous, so there's a path there.
Yeah, he had a great combine week too. I mean,
that's the most important thing in evaluating. He split 2 coaches coming at him scheme in a drill and hit a layup. So you better watch your fucking board, dude. If he's not top 14 for you after that,
you're stupid.
An idiot. You're an idiot, and
you don't know anything.
Account taken away. Okay, so
when I sort specifically by standing reach at the combine, he's suspiciously low, and honestly, the only thing that matters to me is standing reach. So I don't really give a fuck. Anyways,
do you have any intel on that though?
On what? Oh yes,
the standing reach, because you can only get the intel from the sources that you trust.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, the official website that has all the standing reaches for all the guys.
Okay, you're valid then.
So okay, yeah. I mean, it's an exclusive link you gotta get, but
it's an exclusive usage of the website Google.com, looking up standing reaches list NBA Draft 2025.
See, that's the wrong one. It's got to be Draft Combine Anthrometric.
The YouTube watchers will not understand this, but the podcast listeners will.
You bum, Coop. Gaha. Coop, you do have to turn it off. You have to stop the recording. I can't.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you so much for listening to the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast here on YouTube. If you want to check out more of our stuff, you can follow us on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. You can check out our website, upsideswings.com. You can follow all of us on Twitter, subscribe here on YouTube for more content coming down the line. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts on this pod and, our process in the comments. We'll see you next time. Thank you. I'm editing that out. Don't worry.